Then we have another thing where Brittney Griner says that says something about that effing white girl. Now, can you imagine the outrage if Caitlin Clark said those things? That injuries that black girl was wrong.
The WNBA is embroiled in yet another controversy that aptly captures everything that is wrong with the way the league handles its biggest star. Startling video seems to show Brittney Griner calling Caitlin Clark a fucking white girl after she fouled out against the Indiana Fever, while the league, which has benefited greatly from Clark's star power, continues to ignore the player who single-handedly saved their faltering organization.
What she said, but the way people are taking it is that she said some very disrespectful stuff. All right, so let's take a look at what she is saying right here. I'm not a lip reader, but it looked like right here she says effing white girls. Oh man, effing trash, effing white girls. Effing trash right there.
The events of Thursday night's 81-76 triumph over the Atlanta Dream by the Indiana Fever were nothing short disgraceful, but regrettably not surprising, given how WNBA players treat Caitlin Clark. Brittney Griner, the player who was traded for the Russian Merchant of Death and made headlines around the world, apparently couldn't stand being outplayed by a point guard who is 22 years old and roughly half her weight.
The post from Brittney Griner, and one thing I don't understand is that, like, there is some kind of flimsy evidence, I guess. Like, we're not lip readers. We're not lip readers. She probably says trash. Like, it sounds like she has said. It looks like what it apparently says is effing.
Griner was sent off the floor for receiving too many fouls after laboring tremendously throughout the game and scoring only 5 points in 25 minutes, but rather than leaving the field with. When cameras captured what seemed to be Griner mouthing the words trash and effing white girl in reference to Caitlin Clark, it took a moment for the veteran player, who ought to be serving as an example for younger athletes, to realize that she was using racial epithets because she couldn't stand being outplayed by someone half her size.
You guys did not watch the game in its entirety. Brittney Griner fouled out late in the fourth, and she was in foul trouble the whole game. The referees was definitely calling everything on her. Even though the Indiana Fever really didn't get a chance to shoot a bunch of free throws that game, they was making specifically calls against Brittney Griner, and she was getting frustrated about it, man. Now, footage has surfaced, a couple different takes on this clip as well as to what she actually said. Some people saying she didn't call Caitlin Clark a effing white girl. Some people say that she said what a effing whack call. At the end of the day, she said something.
Although lip reading isn't an exact replica, the video, which has now gone viral on social media, makes Griner's apparent rage very evident. Science, this isn't some ambiguous gesture or unclear audio. Rather, it's a professional athlete using racial language against a fellow player because she was unable to handle her own subpar performance on the basketball court. The visual evidence is so damning that even bystanders can see what seems to be happening.
Now it appears that Brittney Griner has been caught on video. And yes, there's a certain amount of lip reading that's going on here, but y'all let you be the judge, because I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to try to decipher what it is Brittney Griner was saying. By the way, she fouled out of a WNBA game against Caitlin Clark in the Indiana Fever. She plays for the Atlanta Dream now. So here we go. Brittney Griner, who Joe Biden acquired 2 years ago and maybe the most lopsided trade of all time, this side of Deshaun Watson, was caught on camera saying what appeared to be some not very nice things about white girl Caitlin Clark during her little WNBA game last night.
If you're having fun, please subscribe. The circumstances surrounding this tragedy are what enrage me the most. By her standards, Caitlin Clark had a lackluster evening, scoring only 11 points in the triumph. The Griner incident wasn't the only controversy involving Caitlin Clark in that game, which aptly captures the hostile environment she encounters every night she steps onto a WNBA court during the same contest. It wasn't a case of Clark dropping 30 points and embarrassing Griffin in front of a national audience. Rather, It was just a case of one player performing her job while another player completely lost her composure and apparently used language that would get any other employee fired from any other workplace in America. Additionally, Clark and Ryan Howard got into a fight that led to both players receiving technical fouls. When the WNBA examined an altercation between their biggest star and another player, they decided that a $30 fine, the equivalent of pocket change for professional athletes, was a suitable punishment for both parties. However, when Brittney Griner appeared to use racial slurs against that same star player, the league responded with complete silence. This is in contrast to the fact that both players received matching $30 fines as if they were equally responsible for whatever transpired between them.
A lot of very, very racist women, right? These are racist women who were told that they were God's gift to women's basketball, that they were black, and because of that, they are better than white people at sports. That's the one area that they can succeed over white people in sports, right? And this is their league, right? Then you got a young, the stereotypical white girl, pretty, skinny, is better than it comes into the sport and becomes the Michael Jordan, LeBron James of the sport. The face gets more publicity on one than they ever got in some of their playoff, any of their games ever. Brings more money. They are extremely jealous and won't say it. They want to make it like it's typical basketball. But no, they have made it very clear. Angel Reese, the Brittney Griners, that nobody cared about their...
This exemplifies the selective enforcement and unfair practices that have become the norm in the WNBA. Defining characteristic for safeguarding Caitlin Clark, the league is quick to place equal blame and impose matching sanctions when Clark gets into a physical altercation, as if the player who has transformed their sport is somehow equally accountable for every unpleasant encounter she has. But when other players cross boundaries that shouldn't exist in professional sports, the league suddenly exhibits selective blindness. The $30 fine for the Howard incident is even more absurd when you take into account the financial contribution Caitlin Clark makes to the WNBA. This is a player whose very presence can make a when it comes to punishment. The league treats her like any other player and refuses to shield her when she is the object of genuinely inappropriate behavior. Despite Tuesday night games becoming a cultural event with jersey sales that have surpassed league records and regular television viewership that other WNBA competitions can only hope to achieve, the Griner episode and the wider treatment of Caitlin Clark are not individual instances. Rather, they are a part of a systematic pattern of targeting that has grown so blatantly apparent that it is impossible to deny.
We have another thing where Brittney Griner says that says something about that effing white girl. Now, can you imagine the outrage if Caitlin Clark said those things? That Angel Reese, that black girl, was running from that. Why is it that the black players can be openly racist? There's investigation into racist comments, but you can be racist toward a white girl who is bringing all these eyes to the...
Currently, it appears that Brittney Griner is taking this targeting to a whole new level by offering terrible words to express her annoyance with Clark's accomplishments. The pattern is evident when players are unable to match Caitlin Clark's basketball skill, drawing power, or professional demeanor, and they turn to generating controversy, drama, or, in Griner's case, apparently using language that has no place in professional sports. This isn't competitive trash talk between athletes. Rather, it's a veteran player who seems to cross racial lines because she can't handle being outplayed by someone who embodies everything the league should be celebrating when a child succeeds. They turn to bullying tactics on the playground. But these are supposed to be professional athletes representing the top division of women's basketball. What's even more troubling about this pattern is how predictable it has become. Every time Clark wins, she breaks another attendance record, or she attracts new fans to the sport. You can almost predict when the next manufactured controversy will surface. It seems like some players have made attacking Clark their main contribution to basketball discourse instead of concentrating on their own games.
Followed by fucking white girl. Now, like I said, I'm not a lip reader. I don't know what she said. But again, the perception is the only thing that matters. And the perception throughout the WNBA is players dislike Caitlin Clark because she's white. I think the main reason they dislike Caitlin Clark is because she's white and has elevated the league into the mainstream.
Possibly the most frustrating element of this whole circumstance is the WNBA's overall The league's silence on the Griner incident speaks volumes about their priorities and their spine, or lack thereof, when faced with footage that seems to show one of their players using racial language against their biggest star. This is the same organization that has watched Caitlin Clark transform their sport from a niche product to a cultural phenomenon, but they appear more interested in appeasing the players who target her than protecting their most valuable asset. Instead of confronting the issue head-on, the WNBA has opted to act as though it never happened. This is not only bad leadership, but cowardly leadership that puts avoiding awkward situations ahead of upholding professional standards. Examine this in relation to how other professional sports leagues respond to comparable circumstances. The league's inaction on the Griner incident is made even more egregious when you take into account their prior reactions to much less serious incidents involving Clark. They were quick to place equal blame for the Howard altercation, implying that they are more than capable of acting when it serves their interests. But when their star player was the target of apparent racial epithets,
I wonder
they
what
abruptly...
would happen if you catch one of the white players saying effing black girls. You know what I'm saying? Like, what would happen if Caitlin Clark was saying something around that way with her lips? Oh, the internet would burn down, fam. They will be coming at Caitlin Clark left and right. You already have some people, especially in the media, saying, oh yeah, Caitlin Clark always get these special whistles. She's this, she's that, race this, race that. So I can only imagine if she messed around and had a video that was close to something like this. Come on, fam.
From a purely commercial standpoint, the WNBA's inability to safeguard one of the most ill-advised choices made by Caitlin Clark in contemporary sports management is to safeguard an investment that has revolutionized their entire sector, not merely to act morally, though that should be sufficient justification. The effect of Caitlin Clark on WNBA attendance, television viewership, and item sales are quantifiable facts that appear in every financial metric the league monitors, and her games often draw far larger crowds than other WNBA games. Her jersey is the league's best-selling item, and her presence has drawn media attention and sponsors that the WNBA couldn't have afforded with their full marketing budget, but the league appears committed to sabotage the success by permitting other players to cultivate poisonous environments around their main attraction. When players like Brittney Griner can reportedly use foul language without being suspended, or when Angel Reese can spend months creating controversies without facing repercussions, it fosters an environment where disparaging Clark is accepted. The WNBA spent decades fighting for relevance, vying for television coverage, and pleading with fans to care about their product. Then Caitlin Clark came along and single-handedly solved many of these issues, only to see the league fail to protect her from the very players who should be thanking her for elevating their sport. This strategy is not only morally wrong, but also financially suicidal.
One person said, I will be reaching out to the WNBA to ask if Caitlin Clark, a trash effing white girl, violates its recent announcement, no tolerance for racism and no space for hate campaign. We'll report back. Now, that is interesting because we know that they've been pushing their whole campaign about racism, attacks, and all these different scenarios playing out in the W.
The business world is naturally aware of this idea. If an employee significantly raises the worth and reputation of your organization, you should shield them from abuse at work. When there is toxic behavior and hostile work settings, you don't let other employees attack them without consequence while acting as though upholding professional standards isn't your duty. Brittney Griner's suspension would signify the WNBA's definitive decision to create and uphold professional standards that safeguard all players, especially their most valued ones, rather than merely penalizing one player for inappropriate behavior. The league has the chance to declare that using racial language in any situation is unacceptable in professional basketball. Think about the message a ban would convey to the league. Players would be warned that using racial epithets to disparage other athletes would have dire repercussions. More significantly, it would show Caitlin Clark and other players that the WNBA is committed to upholding professional standards and shielding its athletes from hostile conduct. This would go beyond social media controversy and show that the league takes workplace harassment seriously and will not tolerate behavior that would be unacceptable in any other professional setting. This is about basic professional behavior that should be applied to everyone, regardless of fame or rank. It is not about giving famous athletes preferential treatment.